In the vast, cold universe of the Arctic, where ice reigns eternal and the sun either hides for months at a time or shines relentlessly, there exists a creature whose majesty is almost a physical symbol of the land itself, the walrus, Odobenus rosmaris. The tusked giant of the sea. It is not just a mammal, but a guardian deity in Inuit culture, a messenger of ice, and an indispensable source of life for those who live along the harsh Arctic coast. The appearance of the walrus is an impressive event, a massive mass of meat and fat that can weigh up to 2 tons. With thick, wrinkled skin, and the unmistakable highlight of its long, soaring tusks, polished like ivory swords by time and the pressure of the ocean. The sight of a rocky beach or an iceberg teeming with hundreds of walruses, huddled together, noisy and lazy, is one of the most spectacular sights on Earth. Their roars, snarls, snorts, and distinctive, bell-like sounds create a symphony of chaos. Fierce and uniquely Arctic, they lie so close together they almost merge into a single entity. Defensive wall against the bitter cold, occasionally using their tusks to nudge, to gain space, or simply to scratch at their neighbor's thick hide. This skin, when they first emerge from the frigid waters, is usually gray or dark brown, but after sunbathing or resting on dry ice, it turns pink, as the blood vessels under the skin dilate to regulate body temperature, giving them an almost sunburnt appearance. An eerie and vivid contrast between the warm-blooded fat inside and the icy world around them. The walrus's real strength, however, lies not in its massive size, but in its extraordinary ability to adapt to its unforgiving environment. Its blubber layer, up to 15 centimeters thick, acts as a perfect insulating wetsuit, allowing it to maintain a steady core temperature even when diving into sub-freezing waters. Its dense, sensitive whiskers, hundreds of stiff hairs called vibrissae, are a superb hunting tool. They can't see very well in the dark seabed, but instead use these whiskers to scour, sweeping through the mud and sand, sensing the slightest vibrations of clams, mussels, snails, and other invertebrates. Walruses are the ocean's vacuum cleaners. They can suck their prey out of their shells in a split second, consuming thousands of mollusks a day, serving as vital ecological architects of the Arctic seafloor. And then there are the tusks, which are not just decorative but multi-purpose survival tools. Both males and females have tusks, which extend from their upper canines and can reach up to a meter in length. They use them to drag their heavy bodies up the ice floes, hence their scientific name. Odobenus, meaning tooth walker, to create breathing holes in the thin ice. And most importantly, to display social status. During mating season, the male's tusks are a symbol of strength and experience. They use their tusks to fight in loud and violent confrontations for access to females, creating deep scars on their necks and chests. Badges of dominance. These scars tell stories of survival, of status, and of the relentless cycle of life in the ice. The existence of the walrus, as a native creature, has been inextricably linked to the lives of Arctic indigenous peoples for thousands of years. especially the Inuit, Yup'ik, and Chukchi. For these cultures, the walrus is not a consumable resource, but a sacred gift and a pillar of life. The Arctic, an environment poor in vegetation and diversity, has forced humans to rely entirely on marine mammals. The walrus's thick, tough hides were used to make ropes, cover kayaks, kajak, and large boats, umiak, and insulate floors. Its fat provided fuel, light, and warmth during the long, cold nights. Its meat, especially the fermentable skin and fat called makluk, or maktak, was a vital source of nutrition, rich in vitamins and energy needed to combat the cold. Its bones and tusks were carved into hunting tools, weapons, and traditional artworks that told the tribe's historical and spiritual stories, a transformation of life into art. Body into tool. For this reason, hunting walrus in traditional settings has always been a ritual act, a combination of survival necessity, masterful craftsmanship, and deep respect. It is never an impulsive or wasteful pursuit, but a delicate balance between human needs and the sustainability of animal populations. Hunters, who often use umiaks, large leather boats, or kayaks, must demonstrate almost limitless patience. They learn to read the ice, the wind, the water, and the rhythms of the ocean. Hunting takes place when walruses are resting on the ice or beaches. Approaching these resting places requires absolute silence and near-stealth paddling, out of earshot and sight of the ever-vigilant walruses. Once close enough, the hunters use a traditional harpoon, tied with a strong rope and attached to an inflatable sealskin buoy. The spear is designed to pierce thick hide, but the tip breaks free from the handle immediately after impact, holding the animal in place with a rope and buoy, preventing it from sinking into the water, where a dead walrus is lost forever and cannot be retrieved. It is a risky fight and requires meticulous teamwork. A hunter may struggle with a wounded walrus for hours, exhausted in the freezing water, until it can be brought up and killed with a precise strike to minimize pain. Most importantly, each successful kill is not just a physical victory, but also a thanksgiving ritual. According to indigenous spiritual traditions, the spirit of the walrus must be appeased and honored. No part of the animal is wasted. Skin, fat, meat, tusks, bones, and internal organs are all used for specific purposes. This is a core ethical principle. If a creature sacrifices itself for the survival of the community, then that community has an obligation to respect that sacrifice by using everything it has to offer. Hunting is a lesson in dependence, a reminder that humans are just a small part of a huge victim to greed and industrial expansion. Tens of thousands were killed in just a few decades, severely depleting conservation rules. The aim is to maintain the traditional culture and way of life, not to sell their products on international markets. Trade in ivory and other products is only allowed within the community or with very strict restrictions. The greatest threat to walruses in the 21st century, however, is not spears or guns, but an invisible, global enemy: climate change. Walruses rely heavily on sea ice as a resting ground where they breed, care for their young, and rest between hunts. As the ice melts earlier and freezes later, they are forced to swim longer distances or, more often, congregate in large numbers on land. These massive gatherings on land, sometimes as many as 40,000 individuals, create a whole new set of problems. They are more vulnerable to disturbance, leading to catastrophic stampedes that kill thousands of vulnerable calves as panicked herds flee into the sea. The loss of ice also reduces their access to preferred feeding grounds, forcing them to expend more energy searching for food. The disappearance of sea ice is a profound existential threat, pitting animals perfectly adapted to this frigid environment against a global warming they did not cause. So when we look at this giant monument to the Arctic, with its prehistoric sickle-like tusks and its echoing call from the frozen ocean, we see not just an animal, but a history. It is a history of harsh survival, of the symbiotic relationship between humans and nature, of greed and destruction, and ultimately, of the need to protect the frozen wilderness and relearn the respect that was at the core of the traditional hunting culture of indigenous peoples. Their lives, built on the resilience of the ice and the bounty of the sea, are now dependent on human actions in lands far beyond their icy domain. Protecting the walrus, therefore, is not just about saving one species, but about protecting the entire delicate balance of the Arctic ecosystem and the culture of survival that has been forged over millennia. Every decision to reduce emissions, every effort to limit interference with the natural environment, is a brick in the wall of hope for their survival. May the resounding growls and snorts of the walrus remain a familiar sound in thousands of years, rather than a sad memory of a changed sea. May those mighty tusks remain a symbol of natural power, rather than a tragic relic of a bygone era. And it is our responsibility, as the Earth says, to keep this spirit of the Arctic alive. Alaska, a name that conjures up images of pristine wilderness, of eternally snow-capped peaks and emerald glaciers cutting through frozen tundra. But for fisheries and conservationists, Alaska means one thing: salmon. And in all this vast salmon kingdom, none compares to Bristol Bay, the beating heart of the world's sockeye salmon. This is more than just a bay, it's a biological arena. A biological crossroads where life explodes in a unique dance, drawing the bravest of humans to witness and participate in the hunt for millions of fish. Summer in Bristol Bay is a natural phenomenon that takes the world by the breath. Just as the sun barely sets, the Great Migration begins. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but tens of millions of sockeye salmon return. They are gleaming silver warriors who, after growing up in the distant ocean, now swim upstream to fulfill their single purpose in life: to reproduce. Sockeye, or red salmon, are prized for their deep red flesh and excellent flavor. As they migrate into freshwater, their bodies undergo a dramatic transformation. Their backs turn from nautical silver to fiery crimson, and the heads of the males turn olive green. They become rugged, fierce, completely losing the slender shapes of ocean fish. Their return is not a steady stream, it is a biological flood. Biologists estimate their numbers based on complex models and sonar data. But no model can convey the feeling of standing on a ship and seeing the water seemingly boil with countless swimming bodies. The salmon fleet in Bristol Bay is predominantly drift gill-netted. There are no environmentally destructive bottom trawls. No giant factory ships processing at sea. This is a more traditional, strictly regulated form of fishing. The vessels, often called set netters or drift boaters, are smaller, more agile boats, manned by 1 or 2 fishermen. When the opening whistle sounds, or, more commonly, a radio announcement over VHF, the calm of the bay is shattered. Hundreds of boats, already waiting, start their engines and head out into the bay. The fishermen don't swim with the fish, they wait for them to come to them. They cast long, thin, almost invisible gill nets into the current. The length of the net is precisely regulated, usually several hundred fathoms. As the tide begins to turn, it carries the net away, and the salmon on their way will be caught in the mesh with the gills. What makes Bristol Bay's fishery so great and sustainable is this rigorous scientific management system. ADF and G biologists are tireless sentinels. They don't catch fish, they count fish. Their goal is not to maximize profits, but to maximize the survival of the salmon for future generations. They adjust fishing openings and closings dynamically, almost in real time, based on fish flow. It's a delicate balance of ecology and economics, a model that has helped Bristol Bay become the world's largest source of wild sockeye salmon. Maintaining their abundance while most other salmon populations around the world are in decline. But this story is about more than just the fish and the fishermen. It's also about a greater fight. A fight to protect the wild. The persistent threat of the Pebble Gold and Copper Mine, one of the world's largest open-pit mines, proposed at the headwaters of major spawning rivers, has drawn a worldwide conservation line. The mine would create massive amounts of toxic waste that could leak into river systems, permanently threatening salmon survival. The decades-long legal and political battle to stop the Pebble Mine is a testament to the irreplaceable value of Bristol Bay. It is more than a fishery, it is a global biological asset, a wonder judged too precious to risk. Alaska salmon is more than food. It is the soul of Alaska, the lifeblood of ecosystems, the cultural foundation for native tribes, and the inspiration for all who believe in the power of the wild. The million-plus sockeye migration and dramatic hunt in Bristol Bay is not an annual event, it's a declaration of life. A reminder that, on this earth, there are still places where wilderness reigns, and our greatest wealth lies in what we choose to protect rather than exploit. It's an eternal circle, where each salmon sacrifices itself for the next generation, and each brave fisherman joins in that dance of life and death, hoping that, next summer, the silver and red will flood back. But back to the fish. The story of Alaska salmon can't just be about the people who catch them. It has to be about their own extraordinary journey. Sockeye salmon, unlike Chinook or coho, have a unique dependence on the large freshwater lakes in the Bristol Bay river system. These lakes, like Iliamna and Clark, are where they spend their early years. After hatching from eggs under the cold gravel of a stream, the young salmon, called fry, swim out into the lake and live there for 1 to 3 years. During this time, they feed on plankton and grow. Once they are old enough, a miraculous physiological transformation occurs, called smoltification. Their bodies adjust to the transition from freshwater to saltwater, a complex process similar to humans learning to breathe underwater. Salmon survival is more than just an economic resource. It is central to the culture and traditions of Alaska Native tribes, particularly the Yupik and Dena'ina. For them, salmon is not a commodity. It is a sacred gift and a pillar of survival. They have hunted salmon for thousands of years, using artisanal, sustainable methods. Salmon are smoked, dried, and stored to provide protein during the harsh winter months. Respecting salmon, ensuring enough fish swim upstream to spawn, is not a government mandate, it is a moral code ingrained in tradition. Don't forget that the Bristol Bay salmon hunt, even when well managed, is still a money game. A successful season can earn a fisherman hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it also comes with huge risks and costs, expensive licenses, insurance, fuel, and boat maintenance. The competitive pressure is intense. When the ADF&G declares an area open, fishermen rush in, trying to get their nets in before everyone else. Accidents happen, dangerous collisions, disputes over net boundaries, and the risk of being caught in sudden weather changes are real. Despite the danger and fatigue, they return each summer, not just for the money, but for the undeniable lure of pure wilderness. They are part of something bigger, the resurgence of a living resource that can't be found anywhere else on this scale. When the fishing season ends, the boats are pulled ashore for maintenance. The processing plants close, and the area returns to the quiet, untouched Alaska. But down in the rivers and in the Great Lakes, salmon that have completed their journey are swimming upstream. Their bodies, now a fiery red, begin to decompose even as they guard their nests of eggs, called red. After spawning, they die. This sacrifice is necessary. Their corpses provide nitrogen and phosphorus nutrients to the river system, feeding the plankton, which in turn feed the young salmon that will start the cycle anew. The salmon feed the river, which feeds the salmon. Bristol Bay is a story of abundance, of excellent biological management, of human resilience, and of the majestic beauty of a protected wild world. Millions of fish, millions of reasons to keep fighting. It is a never-ending epic, written in the silvery currents of the ocean and the red of blood and life.